Alright, so what we have is we have our character moving around. The problem is, if you look down in our game window here, we have kind of a weird view of where our camera should be. I do think I'd like it to be something like this, right? Where um, we're sort of looking down at it. Let's make sure our camera's in perspective for a minute. Um, so that when we're playing our game, you can see we're sort of looking at it. I also like my camera to follow my player around. So I'm going to change mine back to perspective, rotate this down, and all of this is going to get adjusted in code anyway. So let's go ahead and see if we can, let's go a little bit lower, write a quick script that will allow our player to follow around. So in here I'm going to create a new folder in my scripts folder and be a little bit more organized, and I'm going to call this camera. Because you might have different types of camera scripts. You know, like certain ones that are triggered at certain times. This one is just going to be my player camera. So I'm going to create a C# script here called player camera. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Alright, with that open, we're going to write a very simple script. So we know we want to know where our player is. So we should get a reference to our player. And we already know how to do stuff like this because we can just do public game object, and we want to get our player. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. Let's go back to Unity. And on our camera here, I'm just going to throw this player camera script on there. And then we have our player object here. Let's go ahead and start looking at creating something called a prefab. So we're going to go create folder, and it's called prefabs. And in this folder, I'm going to right click, I'm going to create another folder called PC. So these are all of the, there's non-playable characters and this is a playable character. So I'm going to grab my player here and I'm just going to drag it in here. Super generic character. You'll see it turn blue here, indicating that it is a prefab. So now if I hit open prefab, I can edit it in its own cool little open prefab window. Alright, so I'm going to go back here for a second. Go up to my main camera, and I'm just going to drag him in here, or I can drag her in here, depending on, like I said, I'm going to make it a girl character. Pretty excited about it. Base it on my niece. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So here we're back in our public game object player. All I'm going to do is in my update function is I'm going to say, you know what, I want the position of the camera. So transform.position. I want it to equal the player's transform.position. So player.transform dot position. And I want to make it equal to, well, let's hit semicolon here. And let's just hit Control S. Let's just see what happens if we play this. So I'm going to go ahead and press play on my game. You'll notice that it set the position of the camera right on top of my player. So that must mean that we need some sort of offset in our code. So let's go ahead and make a vector3 called offset. Let's make sure these are together. Offset. There we go. And I'm going to make that equal to a new vector3. And we need to identify three elements, 0, 0, 0. I'm going to make this public because I have no idea what these values should be. I just know if I leave this here and I select the, ooh, I need to name this offset. What am I doing? If I select this and I make it plus the offset. Now, the position already has an XYZ value. All I'm doing is looking at the X from this and adding it to the X to that. Okay? So I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go ahead and try and say, you know what? Well, let's just press play and see what happens. If I press play, you'll notice it's jumping right on top of there. It's acting very strange because it did something to my player. Let me see. What did I do in my code here? Screw that up. So transform.position equals player.transform.position times offset. Vector3 offset here. Oh, you know what? It's when the camera collides with it, it's forcing my player. So let's take a look at this for a second. if I take this and I say, you know what, let's make it higher than the player by 5 units. That's roughly 5 meters above. And I'm going to set it back a little bit, right? So how do I know? Right now my camera's at 1.3. So if I set this position to 0, notice it'll be there. So I'm okay with that. And if I set the y-axis to 5, it would be there. And if I set the z to 0, it would be way in front of them. So how far back do I want to go? Let's go negative, I don't know, -8. So let's try -8. And let's see what happens when I do this. So I'm going to press play. And you can see, actually I think in my code, am I setting the player camera? No, it's right here, player camera. This transform.position equals player.transform position. Oh, equals offset. So that's the problem. Plus offset is what I want. I'm making the player's transform position equal to the offset. So what's happening is, here's the position of my camera. I made this equal to the position of my camera, which was equal to the so both of these were equal to the offset. That's why it flung in the air. So okay, let's try that again. Now I'm gonna press play. I didn't catch that equal sign. Now you could see, hey, look at that, my camera. I can also adjust it in real time to see, like, you know what? Kind of want to get a little bit closer here. So now when I'm moving this character around, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.